Day 464 of the Ukrainian War Map, also known as the Russo-Ukrainian War. Juzzy here, and today is a super quick update as I take a simplified and down-to-earth approach to some of the most important happenings on the ground in Ukraine. So we'll start off with taking a look at those Russian losses again, and currently Russia is sitting on 208,910 military personnel losses there. Then as for Russian hardware losses, 15 tanks, 12 APVs, and 17 artillery, which all up turned out to be Russian equipment losses in excess of 100 million USD destroyed in a single day, and double-digit losses all round there, as you can see too. Then we'll head back across to the map and start out in Russia, where the Belgorod region of Russia is still red hot in terms of the Russia's requirement for both defensive and offensive capabilities in the area. As we have the Russian Volunteer Corps and the Free Russia Legion groups still wreaking a bit of havoc on the Russian border forces and beyond in this oblast. And so much so, in fact, that in Shebekino, apparently there were state employees that had been instructed to destroy their archives before the Russian Liberation Army takes charge. And I don't know about you guys, but this has given me some massive end of the Third Reich vibes right here. And so Russian mass media still holds pretty strongly to the narrative that everything's under control in this region and that these groups have been pushed out of Russia. But we also have some footage of some of these Russian freedom fighting groups simply calling BS on that. But even if they do get pushed back out of Russia again, if they were in the first place for that matter, the genie is out of the bottle now, as this new Russian movement is likely to be a long-term problem for Russia now. And even especially so now, as these groups have assumed control of a lot of Russia's left-behind equipment, including tanks, trucks, and even choppers, one Mi-8 and Mi-24 chopper or helicopter. And to show some of their additional works, for instance, here we have the Freedom of Russia Legion most recently taking out a self-propelled heavy mortar gun, the 240mm S-24 Tulfan, and a Kamaz truck loaded with ammunitions that support the heavy mortar there. They also showed footage of taking out a Russian column of the MLRS, so the Multiple Launch Rocket System Grad, the BM-21s, Russian one of those, in Shebekino as well. I'll zoom in right there for that. But also right here, a monocrystal plant, which provides specialized military equipment solutions for the Russian army, took a hit by these forces as well. And military fuel tankers were seen at the plant when it was attacked. Now, Russian authorities previously spoke about sending reinforcements to the Belgorod front lines, let's call them, although locals said that only a handful of rusty tanks and volunteer fighters had actually been sent to assist. But maybe if Russia gets its forces out of the Donbass, it could assist just a little bit more. Then just a bit north in the Russian oblast of Kursk. So this location, also a bit busy, as 5 explosions were heard as Kursk's air defenses were active overnight as well. Which brings me to a larger point that Russia has increasingly ceded the initiative in its invasion of Ukraine and has been forced somewhat into a reactionary stance, which I would postulate technically started when Ukraine liberated the Kharkiv territory many months ago. And this reactionary approach for the Russian military may only become more pronounced as time goes by. Then moving into the Ukrainian map, so Russia fired up its Tu-95 bombers overnight again, firing cruise missiles into Ukraine. As Ukrainian air defenses so far have confirmed all 15 of those missiles were shot down, but also about 30 Shahed drones, those Iranian-produced and supplied to Russian drones, were shot down as well. Then we'll move across on the map in the Donbass. We'll start out in Avdiivka today. So Here we go. So today, as Ukraine destroyed a Russian T-80 BV tank after it ran over some anti-tank mines just southeast of Avdiivka, actually, which is an assault position Russia would choose to take. And this is possibly all related to Russian/Chechen leader Kadyrov's new presence in the region now. For instance, testing out the landscape. Either way, it was one of Russia's more modern tanks, which they don't have many of, truly. And this T-80BV, of which has night vision capabilities, or had night vision capabilities, which makes it useful for reconnaissance and scouting missions in the dead of the night. But it was just wasted. And if you watched my video yesterday, I was just making the point about Russia's Bermuda Triangle, particularly as these lower Donbass regions have been a standstill for the Russian forces for quite some time due to being a literal minefield. Then we'll move across a bit of a shorter video, as I've said there today. So on the wider map, after the recent withdrawal of the Wagner forces from the region, Chechen leader Kadyrov has confirmed his units have launched an offensive in Donetsk, but also Zaporizhia, and Kherson as well, believe it or not. So spreading their web quite wide, which has not been a tactic that's really worked that well for Russia in the past. Then we'll move across to some news for today. So start off with a bit of a hardware update or so. The US will be purchasing many Gepard air defense systems from the country of Jordan to provide to Ukraine in a contract worth $118 million US dollars, though it is unclear as yet the amount of Gepards or when they'll exactly start flowing through. Although they did specify as part of the purchase that 350,000 rounds of Gepard ammunitions will be bought as well. Then in some other news, leaders from across Europe convened in Moldova today to show a united front against Russia's aggression in Ukraine as part of the second European Political Community Summit, where they discussed military support, security, peace, and membership in NATO and the EU. And in a historical highlight, Ukrainian President Zelensky and Serbian President Vučić took the opportunity to strengthen their ties and promote collaboration. Then the Ukrainian president also sat down with the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, for a meeting that underscored the summit's overall theme of unity. And they also wasted no time underscoring the fact that the training and supply of F-16 fighters and more Patriot air defense systems were needed in Ukraine to strengthen European security. Then in another quick bit of news, Nintendo has ceased all operations in Russia, and the Russians who already own a console cannot buy games anymore via the online shop, as Russia continues to become more and more ousted on the world stage. So no more Mario for you, Russia. Then in a lighter side of the news, or a bit of a lighter happening once again today. So this one happened actually a few weeks ago, maybe the start of May, but some Spanish soldiers started to become quite teary-eyed and emotional after their Ukrainian soldier comrade counterparts were leaving the training centers in Spain. And yeah, it's a bit sad, but in the lighter unity kind of way. And unity is certainly the theme for today's video as I move across to the funny for the day, sort of a funny, as it's all about lack of unity for Russia in contrast. So, Chechen leader Kadyrov's right-hand man, Delimkinov, has been threatening Russian Wagner PMC chief Prigozhin, as we seem to still have separate military units of Russia still being subject to this political infighting that's going on. Just as like one big ego game to announce that one is better than the other. So Delimkinov was sort of seeming to complain about all of the complaining that Prigozhin was doing for months and months on the front lines about not getting enough ammo or support from the Russian Ministry of Defense. And Delimkinov, who is actually a fresh face in the Donbass now, and is there to carry out military operations for Russia under the Chechen military group, thinks that Prigozhin got everything he needed when he was in the Donbass. But somehow I think this guy's opinions on that topic will change drastically at some point. as he will likely be meeting with some very hard realities on the battlefield soon as well. And it appears he also basically just told Prigozhin to shut up and meet him face to face so they can sort out their differences in person, really appearing to threaten a fist fight between the two. And it just gets me every time, the lack of professional decorum from different military groups or political figures in Russia, who actually have the same common goals, but just going at it from a dog-eat-dog perspective. As a result, I don't think Prigozhin is about to give this guy any real helpful insight at all into how to launch effective missions in the region, and probably a very keen example of how one's ego can actually get them killed in the process. So that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate your time and your comments and your likes. And I do hope to see all of you guys there in the next one. Cheers.